Good evening, I'm Rob Spear. Welcome back to News and Blues. I haven't been doing as many shows lately, so for those of you who are interested, I apologize. For those of you who think I get a lot of emails and have thought to email me at some time, seeing my email on the screen, go ahead and email me. I will email you back because I frankly don't get that many emails, and to me it looks as if nobody's, for all I know, nobody's watching it all. So email me and tell me something, whether you agree or disagree or whatever. So I'll know somebody out there has at least seen some of the show and the information I'm trying to convey to the public, because it seems like the public is like Walking Dead, man. I mean, that's why these shows like Walking Dead are so popular. People are zombies. They don't seem to care that we're being sprayed continually with aluminum, barium, and strontium mixtures, among other things that have been found in the debris coming from these spraying jet tankers. It's called geoengineering, and it's an ongoing operation. It's meant to dumb us down, it's meant to slowly kill us, and it's meant to make them a lot of money, the pharmaceutical cartels and the elite families that own them. They make tons of money while we get slowly sick. And we're less likely to be uncontrollable if we're mildly sick all the time. Lately, there's been a lot of strange weather. It's being caused by climate change, but not climate change as the establishment would have you think. Climate change is actually being caused by geoengineering, or chemtrails, as we call them. They are not vapor trails, they are chemical trails. They stay in the sky and spread out, and they are not clouds. And I frequently contact my local meteorologists who never bother to address it. I don't know what they think of it. I hope they at least feel guilty about covering it up, because weathermen, you are complicit in a cover-up of a crime against humanity. You are. Roger Griswold, Paul Janus, the other guy on the other channel. All of you guys, you know these aren't clouds. You know this is geoengineering. You've got to know it. Anyway, a lot of lightning. You know why the lightning's happening? Because there's more aluminum in the atmosphere. And it makes sense, right? They're constantly spraying aluminum mixtures into the air, and it's constantly drifting down, destroying the environment, as well as causing much more lightning. It's one of the things that connects the dots. It's a dot connector, folks. Why are we getting all the lightning? Why is the weather systems acting so freaky? It's disrupting the jet stream. It's ruining the ozone. It's releasing methane. I showed you a film by Dane Wigington, who told all this stuff. There's a guy who does full-time research. He's a scientist. He is a full-time scientist who's been defunded and defrocked by the system because they don't want you to know about it. And go ahead. You just walk through your day blindly while they put fluoride in the water and chemicals in the air and chemicals in everything else. Recently, Subway was found to have put a plastic, something that's normally used in plastic. They had it in their bread. Now suddenly they've come out and they were forced by the exposure of it, they were forced to address it and remove it. And now on their commercials, we bake our bread fresh every morning without this and that. And you'll notice without this big long chemical name that they weren't putting in there until they were found out. That's the way big corporations operate. That's the way the United States operates. It's big corporations telling the government what to do. And mostly it's run by the military-industrial complex. I mean, the big weapons manufacturers. So, tonight's focus is, though, on... oh, and by the way, we've seen those. They're going to tighten up the TSA security this weekend, 4th of July. They're going to start frisking your crotch a little more closely this weekend. And from now on, heightened terrorist alerts for the phony war on terror. That's right, it's a phony frickin' war on terror. It's freaking phony. 9/11, it was an inside job. It was set up by who knows, the Mossad, the CIA, people working together. They orchestrated it so they could implement fascism, surveillance everywhere. I mean, that's what you need when you got a war on terror, right? You don't know who the enemy is. The enemy could be anywhere. So we've got to watch all of you. Well, we don't want to, pat down your genitals and search your luggage all the time. But gee whiz, sorry, it's a war on terror. Bull. It's an excuse to implement a fascist state. On to tonight's film. It's one film. I'm for the whole hour, and it's about. I told you about the lightning and geoengineering. My pet subject, chemtrails, but fluoride. It's also a local story because Portland is still in the dark ages, still putting fluorosilicic acid. And I don't care what your dentist says or what your doctor or any of these other establishment pricks are saying. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's the offshoots. It's the dregs which are left over from the fertilizer and the phosphate industrialization process, okay? It's junk. It's industrial waste. And they would have to spend millions of dollars a year to get rid of it, but they came up with the idea, hey, we'll put it in the water and tell them it's good for the teeth. I'm not going to tell you any more about fluorosis and fluoride because the film says it all. It's an excellent film, and it's interesting. It's well produced. Otherwise, I wouldn't show it. I don't show crappy films, and there's a lot of crappy videos out there. So, tonight, it's called The Great Culling, Culling, and that means weeding out, culling the livestock, weeding us out. The Great Culling, Our Water. Watch it, please, with interest.
Did you know that the whole family, not just children, can benefit by drinking water that contains fluoride? It's a fact that in addition to brushing and flossing, the best way to keep your teeth is to drink fluoridated water.
We consume it every day with the reassurance from our health authorities that it is doing us good. The truth is, fluoride is a poison, and adding it to our drinking water is an evolving social experiment started 40 years ago.
In the small county of Elbit, Georgia, on one of the highest hilltops, stands a massive granite structure known as the Georgia Guidestones. Perfectly aligned with celestial bodies, this American Stonehenge was erected sometime in the late 70s. The enormous structure stands almost 20 feet high, is made of 6 granite slabs weighing in at almost 250,000 pounds. The most astonishing detail of the monument is not its size, but the messages that are carved into it. Engraved in 8 modern and 4 ancient languages are 10 commandments for a new age of reason. The first directive is the most sinister and alarming to us all. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. I have a question for you. How do you suppose they plan on eliminating over 90% of the population? Perhaps by using the oldest trick in the book, and that is to do it right under our noses, then cloak it in the phrase, "It's all for your own good." This series of films takes a closer look at the current pandemic of neurological disorders we are witnessing today, and more importantly, the relationship that heavy metal toxicity plays in the overall equation. Our food, our air, and our water are all under attack, and the most disturbing part is that it's by design. This first of 3 films investigates our water by focusing on fluoride. My name is Chris Maple, and this is our story.
So we got our friends at the Fluoride Action Network. We actually went to their website and printed off a top 10 facts about fluoride. Hopefully we can educate a few people on what's going on with the drinking water. Do you drink tap water?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yes. Yes.
I do drink tap water, but I usually put it through a filter system.
Filtered.
Filtered tap water, yeah.
Yeah, one of those like little jugs with the carbon filter that comes in there.
If it's an emergency situation, I need to, swallow a pill or something. Yeah, but
No, I don't drink it.
You don't drink the tap water?
I don't drink it for recreation when I get thirsty. I boil my water, I wait for it to cool, I store it in jars.
Yeah, don't want to take any risks.
Let me ask you, what made you go and buy that filter?
Because LA water tastes like crap.
Well, I know what's in it. It's pretty nasty.
Have you heard of the fluoride controversy that's going on?
No.
No, never. Yeah, actually,
This is the first time?
it's a surprise for me.
Have you heard of fluoride?
Yes.
What do you know about it?
It's something that's added to water. I don't know like the scientific exact definition.
Apparently fluoride ions help out with keeping your teeth strong and everything else like that.
I always thought it was kind of like a medicine because it helps your teeth be stronger and all that fun stuff. I know that it's one of the questions that our dentist asks us about if we have fluoride in our toothpaste, but that's about all I really know. I don't know if it's a positive thing or not.
So why is it added to the water? What do you think?
To like, you know what, I'm not sure.
Well, my dad was a dentist.
Okay.
So I know fluoride as far as dental health is necessary.
Okay.
Particularly for kids that don't learn how to brush their teeth. Their parents may or may not be aware of what sugar can do to their teeth. So, in my opinion, fluoride's a good thing.
Fluoride is safe and effective, and it's one of the most inexpensive ways to really cut down on dental decay.
Anything we can do to help prevent cavities on children, I think, is very important.
Absolutely, fluoride is safe. It's effective.
Fluoridation of community water is extremely safe and extremely effective in preventing tooth decay. Science is on the side of fluoride being safe and effective. There is no controversy about this in the scientific community.
If it's such a simple issue, how is it that it's still going on after half a century? I remember it being debated when I was
30 years ago.
And it's continuously debated.
But just because we've been doing something 50 years doesn't necessarily mean that it's right.
Public health officials knew then what they know now. Would we have fluoride? Would it be added to our drinking water? Well, today a coalition of scientists, dentists, and doctors are taking action to stop fluoridation until it is proven safe.
As I began my quest looking into the history of fluoride, I found what seemed to be a tangled web of information. While we agree that there are a number of different players in this game and paths to explore regarding the history on fluoride, for the sake of time, we will attempt to be as concise as possible. In the last part of the 18th century, a new kind of revolution was taking hold of the modern world. This was not a political, social, or cultural revolution. This was an economic revolution, and unfortunately for us, the byproducts were some of the most toxic pollutants humanity had ever seen. And one of the most venomous pollutants of them all was fluoride. By 1930, the aluminum industry was the biggest polluter of fluoride. In America, only one company was in the aluminum business: the Aluminum Company of America, otherwise known as Alcoa. Ironically enough, during that time, the U.S. Public Health Services was under the direct jurisdiction of the U.S. Treasury Secretary Andrew W. Mellon. It just so happened that Mellon was a founder and major stockholder of Alcoa. He was also the founder of the Mellon Institution, an industry-funded research institute that was notorious for giving industry the scientific data it needed to defend itself. The Mellon Institute published some of the key evidence that supported the effectiveness of fluoride in fighting tooth decay. It was Dr. Gerald Cox, who also worked at the Mellon Institute, that made the first proposal to artificially fluoridate our public water supplies. Although widely debated, the official human experiments began in Grand Rapids, Michigan on January 25, 1945, as they were the first to publicly fluoridate their water supply.
So you guys want to know what fluoride is?
I mean, that's what we're going to do over the next 12 months. Our hope is to interview people like yourself, various physicians, neurologists, chemists, toxicologists, and get to the bottom of it. I mean, I don't understand why there's a debate.
Yeah.
We want to get to the bottom of what is fluoride. Is it good or is it bad?
Okay.
Well, more importantly, Mike, we'd like to come down and see you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, we can do it at my studio if you like.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay, I got to run. I'm hosting out shows today.
Yeah, all right. I know you're busy, buddy. I'll let you go.
All right, Chris. See you soon, man.
Okay, sounds good, Mike.
Bye-bye.
That's awesome.
My name is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, the editor of naturalnews.com. What is labeled fluoride is not naturally occurring fluoride like you might find in the ground. It's actually a collection. It can be over 100 different chemicals, including some radioactive chemicals, including many cancer-causing chemicals, including heavy metals, neurologically damaging elements that are called fluoride. And then this is dumped into the water supply, and the cities have the doctors and dentists convinced that this is somehow good for your teeth.
So this topic, this fluoride topic, has been going on, discrepancy,
There
for 60 years
must
now.
be an organization that is trying to push fluoride. Otherwise, it wouldn't be going into communities the way it is. So I think there's an organized group that are trying to influence cities and convince them.
2/3 of the water districts in this country fluoridate, but not San Diego. 80% of our 50 largest cities fluoridate, but not San Diego. Now that the water district is introducing fluoride, we have a unique opportunity to really make sure that this incredibly cost-effective public health advance gets to everyone in the city of San Diego. And I urge you to consider that.
Since Grand Rapids began fluoridating in 1945, cities all over America have been slowly following suit. According to the CDC in 2010, over 73% of the public's water supplies are fluoridated. Presently, San Diego now finds itself in over a half-century-long fight to keep fluoride out of its water supply. That brings us to this man who has been on the front lines of this fluoride battle since the beginning.
Well, my name is David Kennedy, DDS, because I'm a dentist. Graduated in 1971 from the University of Missouri at Kansas City. I have a degree in biochemistry and physiology from the University of Kansas and graduated from there in 1967.
Dr. Kennedy, thanks so much for spending some time with us today and agreeing to meet with us at your house. You have a beautiful place here in sunny San Diego.
Twice, San Diego voters have rejected it, 1954 and 1968. Now we're trying to put fluoride back into our water, and we're dead set against it.
After years of debate, this water will have fluoride.
San Diego has a long history of fighting fluoridation. It's the largest city in the country not to put the material in the water.
There are people who think it's absolutely fantastic that we're doing this.
Arian Collins is the city's water department spokesman. He says the city's desire to put fluoride in the water has nothing to do with improving dental health. It has to do with potential fines from the state.
The city really doesn't take sides on the health issue itself. I mean, the city really has to abide by the state law. I mean, there's no question about it. If we would receive major fines from the state if we did not comply.
Now, there's no turning back.
There's no flavor or odor taste at all to the water that'll make any difference. It'll taste and smell just like the same as it does now.
Odor's not Jeff Green's problem.
It's not just the fluoride itself.
He's already sued the city once over the issue.
It's the fact that when you add something to the water to treat humans, unfortunately what they've done is they've skipped all the other processes they would usually look at when you're going to put something in the water.
Green says fluoride puts more arsenic, lead, and other metals in the system. And he says it'll all end up in court again.
So you're talking legal action, presumably? I'm certain that it'll probably have to be legal action.
Fluoride will be in the entire water supply by the end of the month. John Langler, Fox 5 News.
50 plus years now, San Diego's been fighting this battle successfully. What just happened?
The story, if you go back to the history in California for fluoridation, more than 110 times cities had rejected fluoridation in California.
The City Council voted in 1952 to put hydrofluorosilicic acid in our water supply. The citizens walked around and they said, we don't think that's a good idea, and we passed a law that says no fluoride or fluorine-containing substance or hydrofluorosilicic acid can be added to the public water supply. There can be no gift of funds, no tax, and no water bill levied for that purpose.
Even as far back as 1952, they were actually able to name the product that was going to end up being put in the water that we now have to spend all of our time on.
And it's ordinance number 67 in the San Diego Municipal Code.
It still stands?
It still stands today, and what we have is a bunch of crooks and thieves in downtown City Hall, and they decided, well, you know, that's such an old law. Mayor Golddigger actually said that's such an old law. Well, let's see, the Constitution is 200 years old. Shall we throw that out too, Mayor? San Diego is not being forced to fluoridate. They're doing voluntarily against the law that we have in our community. So what do you do about that? The only thing I know to do about that is exactly what all the people in Libya and Egypt and the Middle East did, is that when you get sick and tired of the totalitarian approach to government, where they says, you will drink it, you're going to like it, we decided you need to have hazardous waste in your water supply, and you got to stand up and say, you know what? You drink it, because I don't want it. This is a sad day where the citizens of San Diego lost again. We held them off for 60 years, and here they are, buying Chinese hazardous waste, put it in the water supplies of San Diego, directly against our wishes. If you catch the citizens asleep, you can take their rights away, and that's what they did.
That's what it was.
People just, are not savvy enough to be able to figure out that the hazardous waste from China is not what's going to prevent tooth decay. Eating right and taking care of your teeth is what prevents tooth decay. This is about your rights. This is a civil right. Are we going to put stuff in the water that harms children?
We shouldn't.
Well, we did.
Well, hello there.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
How are you? Good to see you.
Good seeing you too.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for inviting us out here in such a short notice.
Oh, you bet. You bet. And I'm glad the weather showed up nicely.
So you ready to talk about some fluoride or what?
You bet I'm ready.
As we know, it's a pretty important topic.
It sure is, but a misunderstood topic by most people.
Yeah, you're right. And hopefully we're here today to, to gather a little more clarity around the issue, and I'm hoping maybe you might be able to help us with it.
Okay. When they first started using fluoride, they used sodium fluoride. And sodium fluoride that we were able to get from the aluminum industry. Well, the fluoride that is being put in the water now, not back in 1940, 1950, that was sodium fluoride. Now it's a mineral. It's coming from the phosphate fertilizer industry. It's a byproduct that is a very toxic waste. It's basically fluoride bound to silica, okay? And it's called fluorosilicylic acid when it's put in. Extremely toxic.
Fluoride is really a clever way for industry, the mining industry, chemical processing industries, aluminum smelting and processing industries, to eliminate their toxic industrial waste without having to pay for it to be handled as industrial waste. They just slap a new label on it, fluoride. They sell it to cities, and the cities dump it into the water supply.
The water in Amesbury is supposed to have fluoride in it, but Rob Damaris has been concerned for years about what's in the supply he gets from China. The residue you see here is what won't dissolve when he puts the fluoride powder in the water. What is that?
We don't know.
You have no idea what's in there?
I don't know what it is. It's not soluble, and it doesn't appear to be sodium fluoride, so we're not quite sure what it is.
But they should test it to make sure that what they're putting in is safe for us to drink.
For almost a year, these fluoride pumps in Amesbury have been off, and the water department says they'll stay off until they can figure out what's in the fluoride. Since 2007, most of the sodium fluoride has also been imported from China because it's the least expensive on the market.
I don't think that when it comes to something that I ingest every day, the lowest bidder is good enough.
I'd like to be able to add it in, worry-free.
But despite those concerns, we want to be clear. Both state and federal health officials tell Team 5 Investigates Chinese fluoride is safe.
So who do you think we should talk to next? I mean, you know anybody that...
Coming to town is Paul Connett. He's an excellent professor of chemistry. All the chemistry professors in the world think this stuff is bad because, it burns holes in the countertop and stuff like that. So Paul would be a really good guy for you to talk to.
My name is Paul Connett. I am a retired professor of chemistry. I taught at St. Lawrence University from 1983 and retired in May of 2006. And my specialty was environmental chemistry and toxicology. Most people in America are persuaded that everybody fluoridates their water. And if you're living in a town like Albany or Long Island or Ithaca or somewhere, but the vast majority of the population of the world does not drink fluoridated water. Most of the countries do not fluoridate their water, only about 30.
The countries now that have banned the use of fluoride, China, Austria, Belgium, Finland, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, Hungary, and Japan. All these countries have said that fluoride, number one, is ineffective and toxic and should not be used. We are still using it. There's something wrong here. I think it's time that we become aware and do something about it.
How come
Our country that's supposed to be, quote, so smart, uses it. Well, there's something going on here. What does the European Union know that we don't know? Nothing. Nothing. They know the same thing, that's why, but the difference is they're not getting paid off and we are, and so therefore, this is what the only thing I can come up with, because they both have the same facts. They both have the same facts. Fluoride is toxic. Fluoride is not helping your teeth. If it was really helping your teeth, why do we have all these dental problems? It's not at all. How come you can go to primitive societies around the world that never had even seen fluoride, and they have perfect teeth? Why are we having all these learning disorders? How come we're having autism? We're having all these things we never had before. Well, why don't we ask that question and answer it honestly? Answer it honestly.
98% of Europe does not fluoridate. Only 8 countries in the world have more than 50% of their population drinking water. America, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Israel, Singapore, Malaysia, and Colombia. Only 8.
I am from Europe, so I'm really surprised.
Yeah.
It's 90% fluoride free.
Yeah, they don't. You never knew that either? Okay. Well, they don't really tell a lot of people that statistic. In America here, we are 75% and growing, whereas all the other countries have been banning it.
There's 2 main reasons why European countries explain why they never went along with this American practice. One was they didn't feel it was right to force it on people that didn't want it. And secondly, they didn't think that all the health issues had been resolved.
I think Europeans have come to their senses on several issues, not all of them, but on many, GMOs being one of them and fluoride being another. They've rejected these things because they're looking at the evidence. America tends to be way behind the curve on really recognizing reality in the realm of fraudulent hoax science.
Our CDC and the liars in Washington, D.C. have only had success in countries that speak English for the vast majority of the disposal of their hazardous waste product. That means that you and I and our children in the United States are the largest consumers of hydrofluosilicic acid. Call it what it is. Hydrofluosilicic acid, what is that? Hydro is water, fluo, fluoride, silicic, sand, and it's missing an electron. It's acidic. It'll kill you. You take your hand, dip it in like that, you're gonna die. Hydrofluosilicic acid does not occur in nature. It's a man-made molecule. And it eats through concrete, glass, stainless steel, fiberglass, plastic. You name it, it'll eat it. So why are we putting that in the water?
It's toxic. It'll kill you. You touch it, it kills you. Just before they pour it into our drinking water, there's a skull and bones right on the side of the packaging. You need to wear a hazmat suit.
First tonight, hazmat crews from all across our area responded to a chemical leak this afternoon in Rock Island. The chemical was so strong that it was burning through the concrete there. News 8's Christy Mergenthal has the latest.
It was just before 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon when hazmat crews were called to the Rock Island water treatment plant for a chemical spill coming from this tanker truck. The chemical hydrofluorosilicic acid is used to add fluoride to the plant's water. After several hours, crews were able to clean up the leak, allowing operations to return to normal.
They had to cordon off the area, obviously, but as far as the treatment of the water and the amount of water being used by the public, there's no effect on that at all.
That's how they transport it. It's extremely aggressive. It'll eat through almost anything, including concrete.
It'll eat through glass, steel, titanium, bricks, anything. It's crazy.
Basically, is a hazardous waste byproduct of the manufacture of phosphate fertilizer. It's a mining byproduct.
They dig up this rock. This rock is no good, as is. So you mix it with sulfuric acid, and this produces soluble phosphate, and that's what becomes the fertilizer.
In doing so, they get all this fluorosilicate in there.
It's a byproduct that they can't do anything with. It's a poison, so they sell it and make fluoride out of it.
It was a fraud. It was a scam from the get-go. It is a means of getting rid of fluoride. You allow industry to use your water supply to dispose of their hazardous waste. It's a disposal mechanism.
It's a major industrial waste pollutant. They were trying to dump it into the rivers that were going out into the ocean in Florida, and boy, they stopped that. They said, you're polluting, you're killing the fish, and which they were.
For 100 years, they decimated the local vegetation, crippled the cattle, damaged the citrus groves in Florida.
It was costing them a fortune to handle this as a very serious industrial waste.
And then eventually...
Oh, I have an idea. Let's put it in the water supply and we'll get them to take it off our hands. We don't have to pay to get rid of a toxic waste.
And now they're making millions of dollars on what is. Now, if you read it, it'll say what was. Well, I don't care what was. It still is an industrial waste product that is being added as our fluoridating agent.
And so they're helping Cargill get rid of their hazardous waste problems. Cargill is the largest privately owned corporation in the world. They were also the largest producer of hydrofluosilicic acid. Cargill at one time had like 90% of the market. When the hurricanes went through Florida, they knocked out the holding pond, so there was a shortage of hydrofluosilicic acid. And so they reached out to the rest of the world, and now we get it from Mexico and Japan and China, because none of those countries allow fluoride in the water supply. They don't put it in at all. So it obviously is piling up in those countries. I don't think we need to be helping other countries out with their disposal of fluorosilicic acid.
Fluoridation is the worst recycling practice in the world. So I support recycling. But to take the hazardous waste from the phosphate fertilizer industry, which cannot be dumped into the sea by international law and cannot be used locally because it's too concentrated, and to take that product and put it into our public drinking water is sheer lunacy. It's bizarre. I mean, George Orwell, Kafka could have written this play. It's lunacy.
There are 250,000 tons dumped annually in the water supply. Does that sound like a big figure to you? If you had 1 ton and were worth over $1 million, you'd be a poor person by the time you got rid of that ton. It's extremely expensive to get rid of.
Come on, let's think for a moment. Maybe we should be adding cyanide. How about adding cyanide to the water supply? Because now they got all this cyanide somewhere. Now, what are we going to do with it? It's costing us millions to get rid of it. Oh, just add it to the drinking water, and we'll pay you to add it. That's basically what they're doing with this fluorosilicate.
It's almost like if a company could just dump its toxic waste into the river, and they said, well, we're just going to dump the byproducts of uranium refining and enrichment down the river. And we're going to say radiation is good for fish because it makes them brighter. You know, they could sell that on TV. They could get on Fox News and CNN, and they could tell the whole country, oh, the fish need to be brighter so they can eat at night. Otherwise, they might starve. So we need to save the fish, which means we need to dump more radiation into the rivers, and that's why this corporation that's enriching the plutonium, let's say, or the uranium, is a good corporation that's helping to save the fish. Now, I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 people would buy that, even though I just totally made that up and it makes no sense whatsoever. It's complete nonsense.
Hydrofluosilicic acid has no known benefit in human or any physiological system. It's not even useful in any mammal. So adding that to the public water supply for an alleged benefit is a fraud, and it's a crime against the citizens of this country, and it's cumulative over a lifetime. It is a very noxious poison, and you do not have to take my word for it. If you've got a Webster's dictionary, open it up. One of the definitions is fluoride, a violent protoplasmic poison. Then you have to go look up protoplasm. We are protoplasm, so violent protoplasm for us. Say, let's put that in the water and see how the kids turn out.
Is there anybody that you know that might be willing to talk to us, perhaps a whistleblower, somebody who's been injured or?
Yeah, there's a guy who wrote a book, Toxic Torts, the tell-all book about the phosphate fertilizer industry, Gary Pittman. He'll tell you the story.
Is that where was he out of?
In Florida. That's where all the phosphate mines are in the United States.
That's right. Paul, looks like we're going to Florida, buddy. What do you think? All right, Gary, so Dr. Kennedy had forwarded me your name and information and said that you might be willing to talk to us about an injury you incurred at work.
Yes, been exposed to a lot of chemicals and heavy metals and have numerous health problems from the exposures. And then, of course, that was during my 21 years in the phosphate industry.
Wow, 21 years. Now, are you still in the industry? You still working, or?
Stopped working in 1993 due to neurological problems, muscle disease, numerous problems that I didn't know what was going on at the time.
Hey, Gary? How are you, my friend? Hey, good to see you. Here we are. We're in Jennings, Florida. We're at Gary Pittman's property with his lovely wife, Gloria. Been so kind to open up their house to us and let us come in and pick his brain a little bit about phosphate fluorides. So, Gary, what made you write this book?
I wanted to leave a history behind on what happened to me and some of the co-workers here in this county. And it kind of gives the inside look at a phosphate plant, mainly the chemical plant where phosphoric acid is made.
Former employees of Occidental Chemical Corporation have filed a lawsuit against the company. They say they have life-threatening diseases because the company did not follow safety procedures.
Paige, they have diseases like leukemia, emphysema, and toxic brain syndrome. For years, doctors struggled to diagnose them, but finally they found a common link. It was the phosphate plant they all worked for. Gary Pittman started working for Occidental's phosphate plant when he was 18 years old. By 39, he was unable to work. Today, he can barely walk upstairs, suffering from emphysema, chronic bronchitis, heart disorders, liver dysfunction, and a long list of other problems. The diagnosis, toxic brain syndrome.
It seemed like everyone over there kept a cold, like flu-like symptoms. We'd always refer to it as a type of chemical pneumonia.
Gary and several other former employees are suing Occidental for failing to provide adequate safety education and gear.
We asked our supervisor a lot of times if they would need to paint off of the car, why wouldn't it hurt a human? And they would say that the human body wouldn't be able to get rid of that kind of stuff.
One woman's husband died of bone cancer before his battle could make it to court.
They messed up my life. They messed up everybody's life, and they're continuing to mess up other people's lives. They need to come in and realize and admit to what they are doing.
Going into this employment, were you, aware of all the hazards? Or?
No, not if I tell you, I'd have chosen another career. I was a pretty smart boy at the time, and I wasn't smart enough, I don't reckon. But see, back in those days, there were no computers.
Right.
You had no knowledge base like we got today. It was word of mouth. You going to work out there, man, they pay good money. What do they do out there? They make fertilizer. Well, we was farm boys. We handled fertilizer every day.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, what I wanted to do is I did not want to die without at least trying to warn people and tell people, if I could have read a book like the one I wrote before I went to work out there, I wouldn't have went to work out there.
Right.
Because it would have educated me and said, what I want to work there, this guy's sitting there with cancer, this guy's over here with leukemia. To me, I think I'd have chosen another path.
What would I say to myself if I was 18 again and looking for employment? Well, number one, what I would say to myself is money is not everything. You can't buy your health back once you lose it. If I'd have had the information that I have now, I would have evaluated this whole situation. If the company would have told me about the hazards and what I was going to be exposed to and what it could cause, and they knew. In 1972, when I went to work, the phosphate industry had been going on a long time in Central Florida. They knew the hazards, and they knew what happened to workers working there long term. And so did my company, but I don't think they tell them today.
Still, huh?
I just don't believe they do. Now, they claim they tell them about the hazards, but I don't believe they do, because if they did, they wouldn't have any workers.
All we were required to wear in the laboratory, that's where I started, was safety glasses.
Let me see that old jacket. You see where it's...
It just ate right through that, huh?
You can just be walking out on a pipe rack, sulfuric acid drip down on your back. I mean, it's gonna burn you. It's gonna burn right through your clothes.
No hazmat suits, huh? Just a little jacket.
If I knew it had been that dangerous and know what I know today, I wouldn't have never went to work out there to begin with.
Let me ask you this: What are your thoughts on taking us over to the company that you work at?
Well, that might be a little difficult. You know, wouldn't want to get caught out there or anything. They have security guards pretty much patrolling that area, but yeah, we could go out. I could show it to you.
How close you think we can get?
Well, you can't see what's on the inside from the ground. You have to get a view from the air. And there's some satellite images of all the phosphate mining in Florida. And they have got some great images of the devastation this strip mining causes. Yeah, we could go out. I could show it to you.
Up here on the right, we're going to have the administration offices. They used to be in the chemical plant, and they moved them. They used to eat the pantyhose off the women's legs. Wow. It says, I worked at the above-named company, Occidental Chemical Company, White Springs, Florida, in 1968 and part of 1969. Our accounting department was located in the admin building, which at that time was located at the chemical plant. Many mornings when we employees would get out of our vehicles, women, these were secretaries and such, our pantyhose would dissolve off of our legs. It was explained to us that it was a chemical fallout, not to worry. Our boss would see that each of us girls would get $1 to get us another pair of pantyhose. So there's three things you can see from the space station, and that's the Great Pyramids of Egypt, the phosphogypsum stacks of Florida, and the Great Wall of China. And that's how large they are. They have them in South Florida and Central Florida that are 400 acres big. It's a huge operation. They dig cubic tons of rock a day.
What is with the water up there?
The pond water is water they use for the process, and it's recycled. The water is used over and over, and it gets stronger and stronger and more contaminated.
How do they contain it? Just by building a dam like that?
A dam around it, and that's what I was fixing to tell you. There's no liner under that stack. It's right on top of the ground, and it is leaching.
Sure it is.
To the groundwater.
Yeah, I read somewhere about a sinkhole that took place.
The reason the sinkhole developed is because the acidic water eating away the limestone. And once the limestone gives way, you're in the groundwater.
Wow.
Because in Florida, when you drill a well, you have to go through the limestone to get to the air. Sure. When that 84 million gallons fell through in there, it contaminated all this water around.
It had to have.
And like I said, you know, it's just a matter of time before, you know, you have a sinkhole like that. It's just a weak point. Wherever there's a weak point in a cavity in the limestone is where the bottom falls.
Eventually going to happen.
Yeah, in all of them.
In all of them. In addition to this recycled toxic water up there in those
ponds.
Those ponds, you call them. In addition to that, they're taking fresh water too, right?
Of course, they use a lot of fresh water because, see, this is the main thing that they don't want you to know, is what they call the water balance. It just makes them nervous if you start talking about the water balance. What do they add back when they need water if it's leaching?
Right.
It's going away. So they have to add some fresh water to keep the process going.
Right.
The phosphate industry uses more fresh water than any other industry in the state of Florida. You know, and sometimes they have to release water out of those toxic ponds.
Where do they put it?
They put it in the creeks and it runs into the Suwannee River. Now what they do to it is lime it to bring the pH up so it don't kill the fish immediately. The Suwannee River, they claim, is a pristine waterway. But if you ask the Fish and Game Water Commission in Florida, they'll tell you not to eat over one fish out of that river a month.
Wow.
Because of lead and mercury and chromium and cadmium. They won't tell you that, but that's why.
Yeah, that's why.
This is just a lot of the documentation I've reached through the years. What really caught my eye was, like we had talked about earlier, the 1972 through 1979 misrepresenting environmental data. And they charged them $575,000 for emitting 10 times the amount of fluoride allowed by law. And I was working there when that was going on, and the fumes were just unbelievable. It'd pit the glass on your windshields, make them so foggy it would etch the glass.
Just having your car parked out there while you're at work. I mean, back in the 60s, you know, I mean, even earlier they realized that those fumes were
very toxic.
Very toxic.
The phosphate company pretty much polices themselves. They have their own crews do their stack testing and all the other environmental things. And, you know, that's kind of like the fox watching the hen house. And I have been involved where they would go up to test a stack and come down and tell me, says, something's wrong. This stack is going to fail. You know, so you look around, find the problem, straighten it out, and say, okay, boys, y'all can go up there and test now. I have also been at the point to where we couldn't find what was wrong, and they were doing the test, and we would just go and open a blind in the fume ducts to allow more fresh air to rush in, so it would dilute the emissions.
But I know for a fact that they cheat on these tests. Once you know that, then you lose all faith in these regulatory agencies because you know it's all a farce.
In this past, I'd say 6 months, there's been 4 people that I know of that I grew up with. They were younger than me. They were 52, all of them died. I do honestly believe it has something to do with the phosphate chemical plants out there.
I would imagine you've seen some injured employees.
I've seen people burned. I've seen people blown up. I saw a man killed, and he was going to weld on a rotary drum filter, and somebody had washed it with a solution of sulfuric acid and pond water. Found out later that the guy had struck an arc to weld on that thing, and it exploded. And it killed him, messed up his friend, too, that was helping. Yeah, it's a very hazardous work environment. When you digest phosphate rock with sulfuric acid, that's what you're going to give off, hydrogen fluoride and silicon tetrafluoride. Now, even at that strength, it'll eat up concrete, asphalt, stainless steel, even the fume ducts after a while, which is made out of fiberglass. Very corrosive, the most corrosive acid known to man. Used to etch glass, it's used for a lot of things. One of the things it's used for is to fluoridate drinking water. Who in the world would want to drink water with this stuff in it?
So, you know, as we're learning, it seems like there are no rewards to this. It just seems it's just all risks.
It's all risk. It's a big lie. There's no benefit whatsoever. It's all risk.
Let's get to the science. That's what I say. Instead of covering it up, let's look at the science. What do these fluoride chemicals actually do to human beings?
There's all kinds of research out there showing it really disturbs the functioning of the body in a number of ways. Inactivates 62 enzymes, increases the aging process, increases the incidence of cancers and tumors up to 17%, disrupts the immune system, causes genetic damage, interrupts RNA and DNA, repair enzymes activity, increases arthritis, and is a system poison. These are all validated by scientific data.
We have in America today all of the symptoms of hypothyroidism, obesity, heart disease, neurological impairment.
I have been very sick. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism about 10 years ago. There was no family history in my background that explained why I had this thyroid illness.
What were some of your side effects?
Feeling very cold, hair loss, concentration issues. It really controls your metabolism. So I had gained about 10 to 15 pounds, which is very unusual. I was very athletic my whole life and never was overweight. So I gained weight. I was sleeping a lot. Again, your metabolism is tuned down. Doing the research, fluoride is an irritant to your thyroid. Your thyroid wants iodine. And if it doesn't get iodine at the concentrations that it needs, then it gets whatever is closest that you're providing in the environment. If you look at the periodic table, you see that fluoride, chlorine, bromine, and iodine are all in the same column. That means they have very similar electronic structure and reactivity. So that's why your thyroid will uptake fluoride and chlorine when you're not giving it enough iodine.
It's a gradual accumulation of the fluorides and the other things you're exposed to out there that just gradually wears on you through the years. And that's one reason it's hard to pinpoint a health problem. Because, you know, you work out there 6, 7, 8, 10 years before you start noticing things, and then it's almost too late then because it's already done the damage. But I've been real weak and just lethargic.
Yeah.
So when the blood work come back, the guy asked me, he said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Nothing the last few days. I've been laying on the couch at home, you know, I ain't felt well." He said, "You sure you hadn't fell off of a building or something?" He said, "Look," he said, "you have a muscle destructive process going on." That was exactly what he told me. And I said, what does that mean? He said, "You got a muscle destructive process going on, and there's nothing I can do to help you."
Dave, so what we're learning is kind of frightening because it seems to me that once it's in your body, is it there to stay?
Yes, you can't get it out. You can cut some of the harm by mitigating the damage and avoid it like the plague, but you really can't get it out because it's stuck in your bones. And that's why you have all the skeletal symptoms, you know, the joint pain, the arthritis, and all that stuff.
The first signs that fluoride is poisoning your bones is pains in the joints, stiffness in the joints, pains in the bones.
Well, you go to the doctor with pain in a joint, he said, "Oh, you got arthritis." Well, arthritis, joint, ritis, pain, oh, okay, joint pain. So we got somebody speaking to us in Latin, "Oh, you got joint pain, super duper."
We have millions of people with arthritis in the United States and in fluoridated countries, 1 in 3 adults. Nobody's ever looked to see if some of those arthritis cases may have been caused or exacerbated by fluoride. Just not looking.
Are bones with more fluoride stronger or less strong? And the answer is less strong. And they got studies where they tried to give them a dose of fluoride, sodium fluoride, to cause an increase in bone mass. It did, but it weakened the bone itself. So those are case-controlled studies. That's the gold standard in medicine. So we have case-controlled studies showing that if you give people fluoride, it accumulates in their bones and it causes the bones to become white, opaque, increases the bone density, decreases the bone tensile strength. And they actually took bone that was removed from people for the purpose of replacing a joint or a hip, put it in a little device here where you put a weight on there and snap it, and they showed that the more fluoride in the bone, the quicker it snaps.
If you ever wonder, how come everybody has hip replacements, knee replacements? I mean, you can go on and on. I can think back when I was a kid, that didn't happen. You didn't see all these crippled people. I mean, you saw a few, but it wasn't common.
I mean, how does it end up in our bones? Is it that where our body just finds?
It's calcium-rich tissue, so your body parks it there because it's got to dispose of it some way, otherwise it would kill you. So it parks in the bone and then it kills your bones. What it does once it fills up with fluoride, that you get little spikes on the outside of the bone. If you take a hand and take a bone and run your hand up and down a normal bone, it's slick, and that's because muscles move around on the bones when you're running or jogging or lifting weights and all that stuff. Your muscles are moving around on your bone, and it's slick, so it doesn't hurt. Well, if you make that bone the texture of sandpaper, then when the muscle moves around, the fascia tears, and it hurts to move. And so fluoride accumulates in calcium-rich tissues, which are bone, ligaments, cartilage, joints, and teeth. So you have to look at this as if you have a lifetime body burden, and the less you're exposed to, the longer you can go before you develop symptoms. The first most irrefutable symptom of fluoride exposure is pain. And that's what we saw. My wife and I filmed a documentary in China. And pain was the hugely significant symptom that they all had. They couldn't even work. And, you know, in China, if you don't work, you starve to death.
Have you ever heard of dental fluorosis?
No.
No. It comes when somebody's overexposed to fluoride.
Awesome.
That's a picture of very mild dental fluorosis. And so is that. You know, that young girl came to see me to get that fixed because she doesn't think that's beautiful. She thinks that looks bad when she smiles. And I think everybody else agrees with her.
They say 41% of American teenagers have this condition.
So this is the white spot. So it's been there. It's a little scary, you know, knowing that many people, we don't even know, what's in our water.
Fluorosis can become more severe than a simple white spot. In severe cases, it can deform a patient's teeth.
When you see spots on the teeth like this, that means you gave the child enough of a poison that the cells that were making that organ didn't make it right. They made it wrong.
When I was a child, I was overexposed to fluoride. There are streaks of that in my teeth.
So you learned that early on then?
I knew, yes, those teeth are very brittle, and so I have cavities more frequently in those teeth than other ones that don't have the evidence of the fluorosis.
Maybe you've seen it. It's white, chalky spots on your teeth.
And I was told that those are calcium buildups.
From the fluoride.
Okay.
I don't think I had really, really strong teeth to start with, but I did have some teeth that they just broke. The last time this happened, I was eating a baked potato, and it broke 2 out.
Baked potato.
A baked potato, and it broke 2 out.
Did you notice anybody else in the plant losing teeth?
Yeah. We talk about it a lot at the plant.
So the ADA, the people in office, the people who are in these regulatory agencies, they're aware of overexposure to fluoride causes dental fluorosis, correct?
Yeah.
They know of that, right? And they know that dental fluorosis, the teeth become weakened, they chip, they fall out.
Brown, spotted, ugly, wear away real fast. Yes, they know all of that. We took California, we took the whole state. There's no difference in dental care costs for welfare from one end of the state to the other, regardless of the amount of fluoride in the water, whether it's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, no difference. So if there was a tremendous benefit, you ought to be able to see that, and it doesn't show up at all in the computer data. So that's why they won't debate you.
And although fluoride can help with your teeth, if either chemical is consumed in high amounts over a lifetime, it can lead to cancer, skin conditions, bone disease, and other health issues.
I was very angry because nobody had told me about the effects of fluoride. If I'd have known what fluoride would do to the teeth, I would never ever have let her have fluoride toothpaste.
There is a recent lawsuit in Maryland, it's a federal lawsuit, a woman who believed the medical establishment at the time when her daughter was an infant. She gave her daughter 90% of her diet, intake of water was this fluoridated baby water. And so the daughter grew up with severe fluorosis, and to get that corrected, dental restoration is about $100,000, and they can't bear that burden. So they are suing Nestle and Gerber.
So putting it in a baby bottle when the child doesn't have any visible teeth, there's no way on God's green earth that can have anything except a negative impact on that child.
But they sell it in the grocery store as baby's first water. I've seen that for years. How do we educate women to not buy this for their baby?
What do you think about fluoride in the water now? You still think it's for the good of your children's teeth? They want us and our children sick and or dying or dead. They want to reduce the population. Remember at the beginning of the film, the Georgia Guidestones? That Stonehenge, the American Stonehenge down there in Georgia that they showed you right at the beginning of the film? The guy built that. They built it in secret. The guy came in with a secret name, commissioned it, left town. They put it up. They spent, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars on it, and nobody claimed responsibility for it. And it's got all the tenets of the New World Order on it. Maintain humanity at 500 million or more. That's like 10% of what there is now in the world. Anyway, they're continuing to put fluoride in the water, rather hydrofluorosilicic acid in the water. They're continuing to spray us with chemtrails, which is mostly aluminum, then barium, strontium, and other even diseased blood cells have been found in this stuff. They continue to put aspartame in almost everything. Aspartame is the crap. It is the feces of a microscopic creature. I forget the particulars of it, but that's what the basis of it is. It's the feces. Look it up. You can find all about it anywhere almost now. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Send me an email. I'll send you one right back. I'd love to talk to you. See you later. Good night.